Yep.
Little wacky what's going on in Minnesota. Rudy Gobert punches his teammate, now bringing into doubt whether he'll play in the play-in game. And then, of course, Jaden McDaniels was walking up the court. He punches a wall, breaking his hand, knowing he won't play in the playoff game. Did you know there was frustration or this much frustration in the Twin Cities?
I didn't know that there was this much frustration just because guys punching walls and punching each other in huddles is a little beyond. I mean, obviously, the pressure of the situation escalated. I didn't know that this was, and as Chris Finch, the head coach, referenced, that it was an immature team in a lot of ways, coming from some surprising places. That's why I thought the impact of Mike Conley, having him rather than D'Angelo Russell, was going to have a positive effect on the team. And it did until you got Karl Anthony Towns back and you had to fit that into the equation. But in the big picture, I'm not that surprised. I am disappointed because I just think the Timberwolves on paper have a ton of potential in spite of trying to figure out how you're going to make Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns number one work. But so we'll see where it goes from here. But I'm not overly shocked. The other part is not only the immaturity, but the lack of leadership. I mean, this has really been sort of a rudderless ship. And Chris Finch is a nice guy, and I think he's a good coach, but he's not a confrontational type guy. And so you look around, and Mike Conley has come in and had that impact, but he's not that overbearing type of personality to pull everybody in line. And so what you had was Kyle Anderson, who's a team leader, trying to get Rudy Gobert to do what he needs to do. Rudy, for being as big as he is, as well paid as he is, as experienced as he is, still he's probably one of the most immature guys on that team. And so that's the rub. You have one of you have the guy you went out and got. You have the guy who's highly paid, and he's a little goofy, as we know, going back to the whole COVID incident. And that really hasn't changed since he's been in Minnesota.
At least he fought a teammate instead of a wall. There at least is that, because the wall is undefeated.
Yeah.
But are things actually falling in place for the Lakers? Now when you look at, now they have Minnesota in the play-in tournament, how are things falling for the Lakers now that the postseason is here?
I think they're falling in place as much as they can. I'm still not sold on the overall ability of the team. Like, they didn't just put Utah away in spite of Utah not playing anybody. And we could say the same for the Clippers in terms of playing a Phoenix team that wasn't playing any stars. But I just don't know how much better the Lakers can play. And I'll be real, and I'm fascinated to find out, push comes to shove, what happens. Because this is why you don't want to get in the play-in. Because for one night, if the Timberwolves come correct, they can win this game. Like, even in spite of everything, there's some matchups there that are going to be difficult for the Lakers. Now, just considering that they are discombobulated, I would expect that the Lakers are going to win. But so now you have to win the play-in, and now you're going to play Memphis, who they play as fast as any team in the league, and they're the top, might be the top defensive team in the Western Conference.
They're going to get run off the court, Buke, and remember they're going to have to play. They're going to have to play. Like, this is the whole thing where there's two parts to it, because I want to get to the Pelinka element to it. But in terms of look, it's great that they rescued their season. They played really good basketball, but you got to play an extra game on older legs. Like, they were completely out of gas this week playing the Clippers, because it was 5 and 7 nights. Like, what do you think's going to happen when they go play Memphis with those young legs in front of just a raucous atmosphere? Like, they're going to run you off the court.
Yeah, that's what I would expect. And the other part is that you really have to dial in and get ready for Minnesota. So you have to spend that time to get ready for the Timberwolves, and then turn around and dive into a 7-game series with the Memphis Grizzlies. Meanwhile, Memphis Grizzlies are just dialing in to what they want to do with you. And this is the great distinction that happens in the postseason, and why sometimes you take what happens in the regular season as evidence and sometimes you have to throw it away, which is now you really get the opportunity to kind of exploit a team's weaknesses. And the Memphis Grizzlies are going to be very prepared to do that. I mean, short of it is, I would expect that the Lakers can get it done against Minnesota. I don't see how they get past the Memphis Grizzlies.
Everybody's got amnesia, right? Last time the Lakers in the playoffs, they were talking all that ish to Phoenix, right? Backing them down. Anthony Davis gets hurt, and LeBron James couldn't carry the team, and they get beat in the playoffs. That was the last time they played in the playoffs. But it's like, oh, you don't want to run up on LeBron in the playoffs. Like, okay, Phoenix did. That was 2 years ago. He's not better now than he was them. All right, let's stick with the Lakers. Ric Bucher, Fox Sports 1, foxsports.com, joining us. I made the case like, look, I don't think the Westbrook acquisition was mostly him. Did he do the deal? Yes, but as we have come to learn, and you would know way better than I would, I don't think that he was pushing for that deal. He was pushing for other deals. But to unwind that deal, not do it over the offseason, do it in the middle of the season, and then the team to play better. And they played better without LeBron, too. I don't know if he's GM of the year, right? I mean, you go to Sacramento, they've done a great job going back to their offseason. But it really feels like Pelinka solidified his cases as being the GM of the Lakers for a long time.
Well, that's good. He did sign an extension, and I would agree with you on all counts. It wasn't his first thought to do the Westbrook deal, and what he did at the trade deadline still amazes me, because Vanderbilt and Beasley were, in talking to the scouts and GMs around the league, like those were the prized possessions that everybody was looking to get. And the fact that he wound up with them and how they fit. I give him high marks, as much abuse as Pelinka has taken. Now, look, and hasn't done everything right, but he certainly hasn't deserved the grief that he's received. And to your point, look, when you got clutch clients and you got LeBron James, this is the compromise that you make. And this is a difficult compromise. It used to be if you did LeBron's bidding, it kept him happy. The pieces generally made sense, and he was going to get you where you wanted to go. So you took it, you followed their blueprint, and you were going to get the dividends. At some point, it was going to come boomerang on you, but you could enjoy the success in the short term. LeBron just can't guarantee you that anymore.
No,
and he's asking for. He's reaching now for those things, trying to compensate for what he can't do. And that's how you got into the Russ Westbrook situation in the first place. Because he's looking at AD not being as aggressive and forward as everybody had hoped he would be under LeBron. And so you go and get Westbrook, who is all of that, thinking that I mean, everybody seems to have amnesia about this too, right? It was Westbrook was going to kick AD's ass, and that was going to get him going and get his motor going. LeBron was putting Instagram posts out there of him and Westbrook working out together. Like, he was all in on this because it was his choice. And now when it turns around, it's like, yeah, you know what? Pelinka shouldn't have said yes to what LeBron wanted. I'm like, okay, well, like what? But that's what happens in LeBron world. So we've learned to live with it.
What's the first thing the Mavericks have to address now that their offseason is here?
Wow. It is figuring out what it's going to cost you to keep Kyrie. And I don't take anything from the fact that he didn't do an exit interview with the media. If he didn't do an exit interview with the Mavs, which I haven't heard was the case, that would be different. But I'm actually working on a piece right now about why players in the league have such a disparate view, admire and respect Kyrie in a way that most media and a lot of fans don't. And one of the simplest answers is he treats the media and some fans dramatically different than he does his fellow players. And it's why Maxi Kleber would say he's a great teammate. It's why Luka Doncic would say, I want him back. I think we can make this work. It's why for all the things that have happened with all the other teams, you never hear players regret or blame Kyrie for what happened. And it's a fascinating thing. So they don't have any choice but to try to re-sign him. And the only question is going to be, like, what's the number going to be? If he's standing on getting a max and he's going to be unhappy unless he gets the max, and then you got to get into this, well, go see what else you can get. That's the trickiest part of this. But look, overall, I'm looking at the Mavs. They need a lot of things, and they don't have the requisite assets to be able to improve this roster measurably. And that's their biggest issue. But the number one is they cannot afford to have just Kyrie Irving just walk.
You for people who don't know, Buke lives in the Bay Area. We won't give out the exact address, but you've seen this Warriors thing since its infancy.
Yeah.
They're healthy now, right? They barely pay attention to the regular season. Now they're healthy. We think they'll have Wig back for the Kings series. But now the Kings are, I don't know if they're a playoff real team, but they're a real team, and that place is going to be a zoo. Problem with Sacramento is it's going to be half Warriors fans. So what do we make of these Warriors heading into the playoffs?
Well, they are going to be as good as they've been, and they do have that postseason experience and magic, and the Kings do not. But they're not a very good defensive team, even with Andrew Wiggins and Gary Payton back. They're going to be better. But these are two not very good defensive teams. And so I think that the Warriors obviously come in, despite being the 6th seed, I would say that they're favored. But I don't expect that they're just going to blow away the Sacramento Kings. I think that this is going to be at least a 6-game series. There is the experience factor, but I think the Kings are a little bit better than people are giving them credit for. There's a reason why they finished where they did, and I think that Mike Brown, having been with the Warriors for a good stretch, has a lot of really good insight into a lot of their players and how to approach them. And whether the Kings are able to execute all that remains to be seen. But I think I expect that to be a competitive series.
Yeah. Well, then you have Clippers and Suns. There's some really good stuff. Buke, we'll talk more about it when you join me on my show. Thanks so much for joining us on the Dan Patrick Show here on Fox Sports Radio.
My pleasure.